Okay, here's another great thing, actually. 6-1, which is today, is not on the midterm. So at this point, before I even start this lesson, you know everything that's going to be on the midterm. I've already taught it to you. So if I could schedule the midterm, then I would have, you know, a couple of review days, and then I'd have you test on like Monday, Tuesday, and then start 6-1. But I'm not in charge of scheduling it. Weaver is, and we can't just sit around and wait for the midterm to come. So I have to kind of pre-teach the second half of the class, okay? So I think you're going to be totally good. Okay, here we go. So question A is find f of x minus 1, okay? So you just write down that f of x right here, and wherever you see an x, you just put in x minus 1. Now, some of you are still not doing what you're supposed to do on notation, and you're going to see that when you get your quiz back. But you need to write f of x minus 1 equals. Go into that yellow highlighted problem. Wherever you see an x, put in an x minus 1, and then you have a plus 4. Okay? Now, if it tells you to simplify, that means you can't have any parentheses left, so we need to keep going. So distribute, and you have 3x minus 3 plus 4, and then when you simplify that, you get 3x plus 1. That's your answer, and you're done. Okay? People think that they're supposed to be solving for x. Okay? That is not what we're doing. We're finding, if you take the f of x and put an x in, what do you get? So we're not solving for x. Okay? Okay, here's question B. Find g of x plus 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down g of x plus 2 equals. Then I go right here into where it's highlighted pink, and right there where I see an x, I put in x plus 2. So in parentheses, I have x plus 2, and it's squared minus 2. Now, 95% of the time or more, you're going to be asked to simplify. So on all these, we're going to simplify. Right here, we have to FOIL. I think I'd probably write that down. When you FOIL it, you get x to the second plus 4x plus 4. Lots of people forget to write down that minus 2, so make sure you do that. So you get x to the second plus 4x plus 2. I'm not solving for x. I'm seeing what g of x is equal to if x is replaced by x plus 2. So that's it. Okay? Who says got it? Let's see. Okay, pretty simple, right? Okay, let's move on to composition of functions. Okay, we had a multiplication problem on one of our quizzes, and the multiplication symbol was very large, and it looked like this. Some of you thought that it was composition of functions. So you took like the g of x and plugged it into f of x or something like that. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Yes, no? Okay. So this is now composition of functions. So the way that you know it's composition of functions, you guys, is you have an open circle, not a filled in circle. It's an open circle, or it could be written like that. Okay? Here's how you say it. Okay? Write this down. You write it like right here. The way that you say that is f of g of x. That's how you say it. So f of g of x. Now, that's one way to write it. Here's another way to write the exact same thing, guys. You go like this. You write your f, and then parentheses, g of x, like that. So the first step I want you to take is to write it the way I just wrote it, because it's much easier to deal with, I think, in that second way. Okay? Now watch how simple. All you do, see right there where it says g of x? You replace that with what g of x is, which is x minus 4. So you're finding f of x minus 4. So now you go into your f of x equation, which is right here, and wherever you see an x, you don't put an x anymore. Everybody tell me what you put. X minus 4. So this is just 2 times x minus 4 plus 1. We're going to simplify all of these. So distribute 2x minus 8 plus 1, and then simplify again. That's 2x minus 7, and that's your answer. Okay? Question B. The first thing I want you to do is to write g of f of x like that. Okay? And then see that f of x right there, guys? Replace it with what f of x is. So you're finding g of 2x plus 1, like that. Now, the g tells you to go into the g of x equation, which is right there, and wherever I see an x, I put in 2x plus 1. So it's just 2x plus 1. Don't forget that there's a minus 4 at the end. So that gives you 2x minus 3. That's your answer, and you're done. Okay, really review. I think quite simple. Who says I'm totally good? Let me see. Okay, awesome. Okay, let's move on. Find the f of g of 3. Okay, I've got to get, tell me what page we're on, please, on your book. 50. 50, thanks. I just can't see my equations anymore because I scrolled. Okay, so question C, find f of g of 3. Okay, these are different and they're actually easier. So if you look at that and that, okay, see how those have numbers? And if you look at the last two we just did, you guys, they have variables, okay? You do it differently. So if it has a number, write this down, okay? If it has a number, you're going to go from right to left instead of left to right, okay? So let's rewrite this as f of g of 3 because that's the same thing. I'm going to always rewrite it like that because I think you're going to be better at it. Then you have to start at the right. And what I mean by start at the right, you guys, that's the first thing you're going to do right there, g of 3. So let's all write g of 3 equals. And then if you look at your g of x is x minus 4. Sorry, I want to write that down so you can see it. So now all I'm going to do is where I see an x, I'm going to put in a 3. So it's just going to be 3 minus 4, which gives you a negative 1. Okay? Now watch this. It'll help you to understand it. I just figured out that g of 3 was negative 1. So if I wanted to, I could literally replace that with the negative 1 because that's what it's equal to. And then if you look what you have right there, then it tells you what to do. You're just going to find f of negative 1. Okay? So your f of x equation, if you look up above, is 2x plus 1. So now all I'm going to do is go into that right-hand side, and wherever I see an x, I'm going to put in, everybody tell me, guys, negative 1, right? So it's 2 times negative 1 plus 1. So that is a negative 2 plus 1, which gives me a negative 1. And you only have one answer, and that's your final answer. So the answer is negative 1. Yes, sir?
So like for the answer, we don't have to rewrite it? Like rewrite the f of...
No, you can write it just like that. Just like that is great. Okay? Okay, let's do question D. It's already written the good way. Okay? So now I can see that I'm going to find f of negative 1. So I have to go from right to left because it's a number and not a variable. Okay? Go into your f of x, and wherever you see an x, put in a negative 1. So it looks like that. So you have 2 times negative 1 is a negative 2, and a negative 2 plus 1 is a negative 1. So now I know f of negative 1 is equal to negative 1. Now that little process that I did right there of crossing out the negative 1, f of negative 1, and replacing it with a negative 1, you don't have to do that. If it helps you do it, but I would kind of recommend you not do it because I don't think they would really like it. So now we're going to go g of negative 1 equals. So you go right here into that g of x. Wherever you see an x, you put in a negative 1. So it's a negative 1 minus 4, which gives you a negative 5. So your answer is negative 5, and you're done. That's all you have to do. Okay? Who says this is a breeze? Let me see. Okay, awesome. Let's keep going. We're going to talk about the midterm a lot when I see you on Thursday. Make sure that you're here. And if you're not here, make sure that you come and talk to me, okay? Because we're going to really start hitting it hard. You guys really are going to be studying a lot for your midterm this weekend, okay? You have to. You have to. Okay, right here. Find f of g of x and find the domain. So it's really just the same thing. So this right here is f of g of x, like that, okay? So it's not a number. That x is not a number, so you don't go from right to left, you go from left to right. So right here, I'm going to replace it with what g of x is. So this is f of the square root of x is all that is. Now I go into that f of x, and wherever I see an x, I'm going to put in the square root of x. So now I have the square root of x, and it's squared, because that's what my f of x is right there. Okay? The square root of x squared is an x, so the answer is just x. That's all you get. Okay? You guys, there is something that a lot of you guys are messing up on that you absolutely have got to know for the midterm. Like, period, you have to know it, and there's a lot of people that don't. Okay? What do you look for when you're finding the domain? Tell me how many things you look at. It's so simple. How many things? Right now, immediately, shooting into your brain with zero hesitation, just like when you jump on a bicycle. You don't have to think about how to do it, right? When you think about that, you should immediately say, I got to check for 2 things. And I saw some of you do this. If you did this, you know what you're talking about. If you didn't think 2 things, then you're not where you need to be. And we got to get you there, okay? So what are the 2 things you look for? That's all you look for. What is it? An even root and a fraction with an x on the bottom. That's all you have to look for, okay? Look at my answer. Do I have an even root in my answer? No. Do I have a fraction with an x on the bottom? No. So it looks like the domain is everything. With composition of functions, it's different, okay? What you have to do is you have to look at what comes in, and you have to look at what comes out. So what came out was an x. And we just checked, and the x was totally, we checked it. That was what came out. But what came in was right here, okay? Is what we plugged in. So, do I have a fraction with an x on the bottom on what came in? No. Do I have an even root on what came in? Yes. So what do you say about a root? I think that you don't know. I think a lot of you don't know. If you have an even root, then what's the restriction? What do you say? X? Do you say x can't be 0? Is that the proper thing to say? What do I say? It must be greater than or equal to 0. Yes. So that's your domain right there. Okay? I want to tell you one more thing about the midterm. Who's worried about the midterm? Who's like, yeah, it's kind of weighing on me. Now, I will tell you this to make you feel better. I do think the midterm will be easier than the quiz. I do. So think of that midterm as like a really hard or the quiz as a really hard like pre-midterm kind of thing, okay? But I put all the twists in there that they throw at you, so we're ready for it, okay? Okay, let's do question B. So question B is find g of f of x. So see that f of x? Replace it with what f of x is, which is x squared. So now I know I'm finding g of x squared. So now I'm going to go into that x squared right-hand side, which I just highlighted in yellow, and wherever I see an x, I'm going to put in my x squared. So it's going to be the square root of x squared. Everybody tell me, what's the square root of x squared? It's an x. So your answer is an x. In my answer, in what came out, do I have an even root or an x on the bottom? No. On what came in, which was my x squared, do I have an even root or an x on the bottom? No. So for this one, my domain is all real numbers. The answers ended up the same. They both were x and x, but the domains are different because of what went in. Okay? Who says, I understand? Give me some feedback. Okay, great. Okay, let's go with question 3. Here's your f of x. Here's your g of x. Find f of g of x, find g of f of x, and find their domains. Okay, take your pencil, and I want you to split this paper in half like that, okay? On one side, let's write it how they wrote it. So we're going to find f of g of x. On the other side, we're going to find g of f of x, like that. Let's just deal with the left side. So this is f of g of x, like that. Okay, then I'm going to take that g of x and replace it with what g of x is equal to. So this is f of 1 over x, like that. Okay, you guys see how I've written that fraction bar slanted like that? That is not a good thing. So I would not do that. Always make that fraction bar horizontal or you're going to get confused. Okay, now this is going to be a little challenging. Go into your f of x, which is right here highlighted in yellow, and wherever I see an x, I'm going to put 1 over x. So now I've got 1 over x plus 3 over 1 over x minus 2. Can anybody tell me what I need to do now? Can you tell me? Common denominators, exactly right. So on the top, so look, check out what I do. I think some of you aren't doing this. This kind of stuff will probably be on the midterm as well, just complex fractions. See this right here, that fraction bar? That's my main fraction bar, and I'm going to write that longer than the other two fraction bars so I can keep track of which one is the main fraction bar. So see this next fraction bar? See how I'm writing it much shorter. Okay, so common denominator on the top, this guy already had an x, so I'm just going to write a 1. Okay, this guy's missing the x, so I have to multiply the bottom by x to turn the bottom into an x. Well, if I multiply the bottom by x, I have to multiply the top by x, so that's going to give me a 3x like that. Okay, on the bottom, same thing, a short fraction bar so I don't get confused. The first fraction right here, this 1 over x already had the x, so I write it down. This negative 2 over 1 is missing the x, so 1 times x is x, and negative 2 times x is a negative 2x. Who says I'm with you? Raise your hand, let me see. Okay, now why do I keep saying keep track of that main fraction bar? It's because now you turn the main fraction bar into, that main division bar into a division symbol. So write it as 1 plus 3x over x. Now that main division bar becomes a division symbol, 1 minus 2x over x. Okay, mine's getting just a little bit squishy. I'm going to move mine up here to the top. Okay, I'm going to put it right up here. So I do not flip the first fraction. Some of you think you flip the first fraction. You don't. The division becomes a multiplication and you flip the second fraction upside down like that. Now, this is what a lot of you did at the beginning. You distributed the tops and then you distributed the bottom. Is that the next step? Is that the correct next step? What do you do? What do you do right now? Lots of people did not do this. What do you do? This x right here is free to be canceled, as is that. So those guys just go away. So what's left on top? A 1 plus 3x. What's left on bottom? A 1 minus 2x. And that's your answer. Okay, now they're asking me to find the domain. What came out? You have an x on the bottom. So that tells you that 1 minus 2x cannot be equal to 0. That means a negative 2x cannot be equal to a negative 1. That means x cannot be equal to 1/2. So that's restriction. Okay, now look at what went in. What went in? 1 over x. Is there a restriction on that? Somebody tell me. Yes or no? What is it? X can't be 0, right? Because then you'll have a 0 on the bottom. If you look throughout the problem, there's nothing you have on the bottom ever besides x and 1 minus 2x. So that's your domain, and you're done with that half of the problem. Okay? Who says got it? Let me see. Okay, good. Okay, let's do the next one. So this is g of f of x, like that. Yeah. Is someone talking to me?
I just had a question.
Did you get it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is g of f of x, which is x plus 3 over x minus 2. So I just replaced my f of x with what f of x is. Now I'm going to go into g of x, which is 1 over x, and I'm going to replace it with x plus 3 over x minus 2. Don't lose sight of the main fraction bar. Guys, look. That's the main fraction bar right there. So I'm going to go 1, very long main fraction bar. On the bottom, I'm going to put x plus 3 over x minus 2. Now this one's going to be easier because I don't have to get a common denominator. I'm ready to flip it. You know, I'm ready to rewrite it right now. So this means 1 divided by x plus 3 over x minus 2. That 1 might freak you out a little bit. Just make it a fraction, then it should look totally okay. So that's 1 over 1 multiplied by, you always flip the second one upside down. So that's x minus 2 over x plus 3. On the top, 1 times x minus 2 is x minus 2. On the bottom, 1 times x plus 3 is x plus 3, and that's your answer. As far as the domain goes, okay, look at your answer. That tells you x cannot be equal to a negative 3. That's what came out. But you also have to look at what came in. That's right here, you guys. Take that denominator, set it equal to 0. That tells me x cannot be a 2, and I'm good. Okay? All right, that's 3. Tell me how much more we have, would you please? I got to kind of hit the road here. How many more? We've got 4, and then what? 4, 5, 6. Okay, I'm going to kind of pick it up just a little bit. Okay, show that f of g of x and g of f of x are both equal to x. So really the same thing, okay? So everybody go f of g of x, and then over here on this side, and let's write kind of small right now, this is g of f of x, like that. Okay, so let's rewrite it as f of g of x, like that. Okay, then let's replace g of x with what g of x is, which is x over 2 plus 3. Okay, go into that f of x, which is right here highlighted in pink, and wherever you see an x, put in x over 2 plus 3. So this is 2 multiplied by x over 2 plus 3. Lots and lots and lots of people forget to write the minus 6. I think they get so focused on plugging that in, they forget to finish, so don't do that, okay? Can anybody tell me what to do right now? What would you do? We don't need to get a common denominator. You could, but there's an easier thing to do. So what looks really ugly? The fraction and the distributing, right? Let's distribute the 2. Can anybody tell me what happens when I multiply 2 by x over 2? What do I get? The 2 on the top cancels with the 2 on the bottom, and you just get an x, right? Then 2 times 3 is a 6 minus 6. Look how sweet. We're done. 6 minus 6 goes away, and you just get an x, which is what they were asking me to show. Okay? Let's do the next one. This is g of f of x. Replace that with what f of x is, which is 2x minus 6. So I'm really finding g of 2x minus 6. Go into your g of x, which is right here highlighted in yellow, and wherever you see a 6, or pardon me, an x, put in 2x minus 6. So you have 2x minus 6 over 2 plus 3. Okay? Can I cancel the 2's right now? Can this 2 cancel with this 2? Yes or no? No, but 2 goes into this, this, and this. So I can reduce all 3 of those by the number 2. So 2 goes into 2 once, so that's a 1x. 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 goes into 2 1 time. Do I really have to write that over 1 right there? No, that's not necessary, right? And then check it out. We're done, because a negative 3 plus 3 just gives me an x, and we're done. Okay? Okay, that was 4. Here's 5. Okay, now 5 is confusing, and honestly, I'll tell you, I've never seen it on Weaver State anything. I do still think that I should probably go through it. I don't think you're ever going to see it. Okay? Okay, look right here. They now want you to come up with an f of x and a g of x, so that when you do f of g of x, you get this. Okay, now watch this little trick. This is tough and a little awkward. See on the very outside how you have that f right there? That's where you need to start. So start right there. Okay, now listen to this. Some people, it's so funny. Some people, the second I show you this, you're like, oh, that's a breeze, and you can just spit it out, spit it out. And some people are like, what are you people doing? And it takes a little longer. It's just interesting how the brain works. So see that f of x? If this is a square root, I'm going to make this a square root. So you make it almost exactly the same, except just a little bit different. Here's an example. if I put an x right there, so f of x was the square root of x, then my question to you is this. What would I have to replace x with to get the square root of 2x minus 3? So if I put an x there, and I remove the x and put something in, and I had to end up with that, can anybody tell me what it would be? What would I have to put in place of that x? Talk to me. 2x minus 3. See, some people are like, well, I get that. Okay, so I took my g of x right here, and I plugged it into my f of x. So I took that, plugged it in, and I got it. Is there anyone in the room that can give me another one? Is there anyone that can give me another one? Okay, I'm going to start you, and then after a while, you're going to do it. I'm going to go x minus 3. Okay, so look at that square root of x minus 3. If I erase the x, what would I have to put in place of the x to get this guy right here? Everybody talk to me. 2x. Do you see how it's easy? If I start it, then you can finish it, right? But that's not how it's going to go. You're going to have to do both ways, okay? So let's do this. Let's do the next one. If this is a fraction, make your f of x a fraction. The reason I say f of x is because that f is on the outermost part, okay? So this is a fraction. Can anybody do it? Don't be shy. Don't be intimidated. Somebody try. I know there's someone in here that can see it. Yeah. Beautiful. 1 over x. Then I would take my x and I would erase it. Everybody tell me what I would have to replace the x with to get exactly that. Tell me. X squared minus 2. Perfect. Okay. There's another one that's very easy to see. Again, a fraction with a 1 on the top. Somebody tell me another one. Go ahead.
1 over x minus 2.
Perfect. 1 over x minus 2. Then I would erase my x. You really don't, but you imagine it. I would erase my x, and what would I have to replace it with, everybody, to get that? Tell me. X squared. Yes. Okay. Do I think this is going to be on Weaver States anything? No, I don't. And it's certainly not going to be on the midterm because this section is not even on the midterm. Okay, here we go. Very quickly on these last two because I got to take off. Okay. Okay, so we want to start with the f of x right here, and we want it to look almost exactly like what we're looking for. Okay. You cannot let the f of x be an x. If I let the f of x be an x, then the g of x would be exactly what h of x is, which is not hard to do. So we're not going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to say x plus 1. Then what would I have to erase my x and replace it with to get this? Can you tell me? X minus 3 squared. Yeah. Somebody give me another one. F of x would be equal to, can you tell me another one? X squared plus 1. Good. And then what would I have to replace my x with to get that? Somebody tell me. X minus 3. Good. Who says I get that? Let's see. Okay, great. And like I said, I wouldn't worry much about that. Okay. Example 6. Here's your function. Okay. So this is C of F. So this is converting Fahrenheit into Celsius. This right here, K of C, this is turning Celsius into kelvins. It's all just different ways of measuring, okay? Everybody write this down for me, okay? Everybody write C of F equals 5/9 F minus 32. Now everybody listen to this, okay? You really have to understand this in order to do this problem, okay? C of F. All C of F means is this. This of F stuff means if you look over here, the only variable you have is an F. Well, I can see that. So if you wanted to, you could just simplify that and say, I know it's of F because I see that the only variable I have over there is an F. So technically, literally, this means C equals 5/9 F minus 32, okay? The other equation is this. K of C is equal to C plus 273. This of C really is not necessary for me to understand the problem because I can see that the only letter that I have over there is a C. So technically, that's just K equals C plus 273. Now, here's the hard part. See this right here? This converts Fahrenheit into Celsius. This converts Celsius into kelvins. Well, that makes sense because you throw in a Fahrenheit and out comes a Celsius. So it converts a Fahrenheit into a Celsius. This one you put in a Celsius and out comes a Kelvin. Okay? The hardest part about this question is understanding what they want. Find a function that converts Fahrenheit into, what does it say? Fahrenheit into kelvins. Okay? So Fahrenheit into Kelvin. That means you're going to put in a Fahrenheit. You stick in a Fahrenheit and out comes a, talk to me, a Kelvin. So the Fahrenheit is on the right and I'm going to do squiggly stuff because that means there's other stuff over there, and out comes a Kelvin. So you stick in a Fahrenheit, you do some math, and out spits a Kelvin. Do you guys understand that? This is the hardest thing right there to understand. Where does my Fahrenheit go? It goes on the right with all the numbers. I stick in a Fahrenheit, out comes a Kelvin. It's the toughest thing to do, okay? All this is a substitution problem, guys. Look how easy this is. I know that kelvins is Celsius plus 273, but I know Celsius is this. So all I'm going to do is take that 5/9 F minus 32 and plug it in right there for my C. That's all I'm going to do. So then I'm going to have kelvins is equal to Celsius, which I know is 5/9 times F minus 32. This is just a substitution problem. Continue with my equation, plus 273. I just did it. I put in a Fahrenheit and out comes a kelvins. Who says I'm with you? I got it. Okay, now technically the notation on this is not right. There's a small thing that Weber State will expect me to do, and it's not simplifying. They don't want me to distribute and all that stuff. They say leave it ugly and that's fine. What do I need to fix, everybody? It really is K of F. You're exactly right. So this is K of F. Okay, so that's it. So it's just a substitution problem. Okay, so the next part right here says, okay, determine 80 degrees Fahrenheit in Kelvin. So now all they're saying is use that formula. Okay, so your formula was kelvins equals, and it was 5/9. Tell me, talk to me right here.
80 minus 30.
Thank you. 80 minus, tell me again. 32
Plus 273.
plus, say it again.
273.
Okay, but there was definitely a C in there somewhere. Oh, 80 is my C. Gotcha. Okay, so I want you to start with the equation. Thank you, sweetheart. So you knew exactly what you were doing and you were taking us to the next step, which is great. I'm going to write the generic right there. Now watch my notation. F of 80 is equal to 5/9 times 80 minus 32 plus 273. With Weber State, it's fine if you go right to the answer. So just grab that calculator, go 5 divided by 9 parenthesis, 80 minus 32, close it, plus 273, enter, and you get, let's say to the nearest, let's say 2 digits. Okay, so the answer would be 299.67 what? Kelvins. Yeah, kelvins. I think it's okay. That's it. That's your lesson. Okay? Is everybody okay? Everybody good? Feel good? Okay. You guys are awesome. It's nice to see you. I have to take off. Anybody that's in lab, okay? Just please be very kind and be very respectful and just keep working the whole time today during 4th period, okay? Does anybody have any questions? Everybody's good? Okay. Turn in your desk. 1 book per person. Guys, listen. Oh yeah, I gotta collect the homework, huh? Hold your homework and pass it up, okay? If you get up and get a book, put it back. You're leaving your books all out like this, okay? Put it back, okay? Please, on the shelf, okay? Okay, go ahead and turn and let's roll, okay, guys?